So good to be here with you this morning. So I'd like to introduce you a bit, and just um, because, yeah, I'm just going to introduce you a bit.
Yeah.
Just want to tell people that I met. I don't even really know in a way where I met Pouya. Pouya, I just recognize it. We go back about a couple of years, and I was totally the impressed with. Um, his demeanor, and his way. I was attracted to spend time with him, and I recognized really quickly that Pouya had done a lot of work, and I call it work, and it's really hard to say whether it's work or not. Hang on. There we go. But Pouya has stepped up to grow in his consciousness, and that's what I've seen. We did an interview before several months ago in the park, and it was beautiful, and I didn't turn my phones off.
I can see that.
and
I'm sure everybody else can see too.
Yeah, I love that you dressed up for this. Thank you. And
Yeah, just so you know, I actually, this is how I dress every single day at 10 a.m. Like that's how I look every day, just so you know. I do take this seriously, but that's just my routine because I'm part of this group, and as part of it, we all have a dress code so that we all show up sharp and at our best and productive. And it's kind of meaningless to wear like a thing around your neck, but in our culture, it represents productivity and sharpness and focusedness, and it's just that's kind of a representation for myself, so that I advanced, on the worldly level as I am expanding my consciousness, so that I can actually help more people and be more effective in my communication. So, well, thank you.
Nice. So what why we're doing this, I think, and I'll acknowledge that I don't really know anything. And you did a beautiful before we went live. Pouya and I had a quiet moment together, and he said a prayer that whatever happens here, it's really not up to us who it touches or doesn't touch, and that maybe it's just entirely for our own uplifting, and I think that was so beautiful, and I'm imagining though that the purpose, if you will, of us getting together is to so that there's a lot of folks are in fear, and I see what's happening on the planet is a really an opportunity. That something has been exposed. The thing that's been exposed is that we've never really known. We don't have security. Security is an illusion, and so as things have shifted, we're seeing that the things that we thought were our security are not, and so I hope to point towards what is our security, which is the bedrock of our connection with God, or our connection with universal intelligence, and that's that. And I know that's been your journey from our conversations for a long time to really tap into source and the oneness and the stillness and the emptiness and the as we see right now, so much of our life is many of us have been attached to our perceived success in the material world, our identities, and as what we do for a living, and I know that one so well because I had spent so many years being identified by what I did and enjoying that, and now many of us have to kind of let that go and say, okay, who am I now? And in my imagining, we're not anything from the outside. We're, let's go deep and look at what we are, as expressions of the one, of expressions. And you said in your prayer before we started of God, and we are expressions, God manifest, if you will, and somehow. And I don't know, obviously this is the plan, but somehow, if we come in as spiritual beings having a human experience, somehow we've gotten disconnected. And that's not wrong or right, but I feel like we've gotten disconnected, and we've been running the show with our ego and are trying to, but we've lost connection with that universal intelligence, and I'm hoping to point towards that somewhat and help people to see their their beauty in each moment. And does any of that
Yes.
ring?
Yeah. Yeah. And I also want to say, because like I know some people may hear this conversation, I feel like in order for us to be able to like touch the people that you feel like you need to touch, I feel it would be good to actually feel what they're feeling, like Ram Dass talks about, which I love. He talks about to be able to see the snowy mountain and actual blood in front of you. So one of the things that I've noticed is that because of we've been hit rock bottom a few times, like I know myself and yourself, like we've had some massive breakdowns, mistakes, addictions, suffering, breakups, all kinds of stuff, right? We have been initiated in a sense to really like facing our death, right? Multiple times. And because of that, we've also kind of like released ourselves and discovered a greater identity, right? But many people who may see this video, or many people we come across in our family, friends, or people around us, they can't relate to that. So in order for us to actually be of service to them, we need to first be able to like remember where we were before, or how we are even now when we are in fear, and then having that awareness of what people are going through, I think we can actually communicate in the right way. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is that
Yes,
it's
yes, yes.
easy for us to have a conversation way out there because that's our norm, but we gotta also bring it to the ground. Like people are actually, like you're right, like actually freaked out. Like they actually don't know like what it's like not to know when your money is going to come from, or the government, or the bankruptcy, or all that stuff, right? So I just want to point that out, is that because I myself can sometimes forget, where I was before being touched by grace, and where I can be if I don't get enough sleep today, or if I'm in a bitchy mood today. I can also become an animal, or be in fear. And then to be able to have that awareness, and also have the awareness of all is well and our invisible infinite nature, right? And how do you actually have that dance of both? Because we're still in this realm of form and duality, and money and debt and payments and rent and all those realities that we have to deal with, right? So how do we deal with the practicality of the suffering that we're in right now, and the uncertainty that we're in, and also be able to dance with the truth of what we know, and how all is well, and be at peace? Does that make sense? So I'm kind of like bringing awareness to bringing it together.
I think it's perfect. Yes, it's important that we meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of work in the 12-step world, and the thing that makes it work is that I've lived that. I've lived that from being in a dependent, addicted lifestyle, and I know the fear, and I know the stories that we tell ourselves, the denial, I understand the self-centeredness, I understand the fear, and so, yes, I think it's really important that we can share that we've been there.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, we say we've been there. I know I'm still in the process, right? Like,
Yes.
one thing I want to share about that I think is valuable, and you tell me if you have that in your household, over, because I know you live with a community of people. So I noticed, like, for example, like I live with 7 other people, where I'm living with my family, my sister, kids, husband, right? And they are wonderful people, but they just have different mentalities and different value systems at the time than I do. For example, they don't wake up at 4 a.m. meditate for 3 hours, let's just say, right? But so they're just living a different life, and there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. It's just different, right?
Yeah.
But what I noticed,
Just a second. How's your connection internet wise? I'm getting people who we're saying that our connection's freezing a bit. How you doing?
my connection is solid.
Is it good? Okay. All
From
right.
what I see is there's
Yeah.
no, I don't see anything saying poor connection, because sometimes it does say that, but at the
Uh-huh.
moment it's great.
No, okay. People are just saying that we're having some freezing and the broadcast is being interrupted, but um, I guess we'll have to go with what we go. Do you know, uh, on a practical sense, I've often wondered how Zoom is getting the bandwidth to do all of this work. You know, there's so much online. You know, it's just
Mm,
amazing. But
yeah.
sorry, I interrupted.
Well,
But
the other thing I was gonna say is that you could also record this just in case, because I don't see the recording is to be on right now. But if you record it separately, and if the other recording is not as good, you can always copy it and upload it if you want to. But I think our connection is right now is going very well. But if some people are not able to see it, there we go. Yeah, just in case.
done.
Perfect. Yeah. So what I was saying, going back to what I was saying, like one thing I noticed that's really cool is like in the past, I would go, let's say I go in the kitchen and somebody's there and they're kind of in my way, and they're like yell loud or just talking about something else or whatever. Just something just pisses me off. Like whatever, it could be anything. It could be they yell at somebody else or they yell at me or the news is on or something just upsets me, right? I would just get into this negative state of mind and just resentful and just kind of heart closing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Something upsets you.
Yes.
Um, and I notice with when I do my morning routines of waking up in the silence in the morning and meditating and consistently and being in that state of, as Jesus says, be in the word, right? And being in that contemplative state of mind. When those things happen, I'm able to notice my neurosis and actually like I'm able to snap out of it.
Yes.
I'm able to snap out of it. And this is a miraculous thing and it's happening more and more. Honestly, I think it's the biggest gift. So I know a lot of people may be at the same situation because we are now in a situation where we live with other people, we're at home all day, and it's like it could be very triggering and catalytic for us. So I guess what I'm sharing is that I've noticed that when I'm disciplined in my routines and take the time to connect, I have more chance of responding lovingly, patiently, and not taking my own neurosis seriously.
Yes.
So yeah, that has been a very beautiful thing that I'm discovering now more and more. But at any moment, I can actually, lose it, and I can actually lose all my stuff and react and forget, and then there's the suffering that comes from that, and then kind of going through the process of forgiving myself. And I don't have to be this perfect, having this image of, oh, I should never ever react emotionally, I should never get upset, I should be this Zen Buddhist whatever, and not letting that my own ego judge me that I shouldn't have done that or I shouldn't have done this. So having that compassionate attitude as well as sincerely trying again. Have you experienced with that?
Yes. Of course. I mean, the awareness that my ego can be so judgmental and so
Mm,
impatient
yes.
with me, and of course that's at the level of the ego where, the truth is I probably spend most of my time is in my head, not, you know and yet if I bring consciousness into each moment, and as soon as I'm here, like
Hmm.
you say, snap out of it as soon as I'm here, and so I can use anger, I can use fear, I can use to bring me into the moment. When anger comes up, it's like, oh,
Mm,
look at that, So
yes.
or frustration comes up, it's like, look at that. Or even lately,
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my roommates this morning, and we were talking about rent, and I was watching myself be totally comfortable with, so I was being conscious of the reaction of love as well, and watching, and the more I'm available to watch myself without judgment.
Yes. I love what you said about like using that to remember, right? So it's actually a beautiful point you bring up. Like one of the disciplines that I have that I'm trying to implement more is I learned from a guy named Joel Goldsmith, who's a Christian mystic, and he talks about in order for you to really be protected from danger or living a spiritual life, you need to transform your consciousness. In order to do that, you need to not just meditate once in the morning and at night, but you need to all day, you need to keep a word of scripture or some passage or something in mind, so that be in that state. So one of my thing is to be in that state, so I have like a little journal, and I keep it with me, and then every time I remember like a passage or something and I pause, I check it. So I do it 12 times, but I sometimes forget, right? I forget, a few hours go by, and then here's the thing: I notice somebody pisses me off, right? Like somebody pisses me off, somebody yells loud, or something happens in the house, and I get I get pissed off,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I'm now using that as a reminder to remind me to go back to the word. It's like, oh, this is my reminder. I forgot to meditate. I forgot to pray. I forgot to ask God for guidance. I forgot to die daily. So even those painful moments become our awakeners. We can actually use them. Oh, thank you, universe, guiding me to this person shouting, so that I need to actually go in the word again, because I have forgot, I've lost myself into too much thinking and worrying and future and past and judging. Thank you. In other words, instead of judging the person, saying, oh, this person should not yell at me or should not yell at all, right? Go deeper and just be like, oh, this is a universe reminding me of my own inner practice.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So they become a wake-up call. Yes. And that's for a lot of folks. I'm making this up, but I'm imagining that lots of people, well, how can I say this? I was on a call last night with my men's group, and there was like 50 people on the call. and a lot of them are afraid, and they don't have the benefit of the work that you and I have done, and I feel so blessed that not only has my life fallen apart several times, in my perception, but that I had the tools to go deeper with that, and so what I'm hoping to do is share tools with people who are saying, how do I surrender? What do you mean surrender? And what to surrender to what? Because their ego wants to know and understand. We want to understand, and there is no understanding, in a way, to what it is we're surrendering to. We can have concepts, God concepts, God the Father, God the Son, God whatever. We can have lots of concepts. I use one in the 12-step world. One of the concepts that I use that's really works for me is my employer, God the employer.
Yeah, I remember you're like, check in with the boss. Check in with the boss.
Yeah, and I get up in the morning and I say,
check in with the boss.
Put me in. It's a simple concept.
Hi God, what do you want me to do today? Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. Is that it? Okay, gotcha. Thanks God. Bye. Yeah, God just called me. Says Dave is telling you the truth. Listen.
But really, because if I'm present, I can actually hear. I can intuit, and I can have a conscious contact with this moment, with universal intelligence, with the quantum field, whatever it is, that with God in a sense, and because if I'm running the show, Pouya, I'm fucked.
Yes.
If I'm running the show from my ego, from fear, from wanting, from desire, from resistance, I'm screwed. And so if I don't have this connection, and I'm, without the connection, I'm back running the show, and so that's, and I know that you know that. I mean, my experience of you is that this is here we are all building that connection, with and the connection can only be in the moment. It can't be in the past. It can't be in the future. Of course, we can have a learned set of behaviors. If that's what we want to live by, we can be like a trained SEAL, and or we can be connected to universal intelligence, God, the boss, however we want to perceive that, because there's no way to describe it, is there? What it is, is and it's easy to describe what it's not. And so that's what I'm hoping, to help people to see the perceived calamity that's happening in the universe, that's putting people in a desperate place. Desperation is often the motivation to connection, to, people say, well, what am I going to do? I can't, I've lost my job. What am I going to do? Well, let's not focus on the doing. Let's focus on the being. Let's be here now, feel, breathe, be in your body, and as we practice that, we begin to see or feel or intuit the connection to whatever it is, whatever concept we have of universal intelligence, whether it's Christ, whether it's um, um, Allah, whether it's different forms of a Hindu, Shiva, and so those are just concepts. They're all concepts of the one. And I think in the Jewish faith, the one that cannot be spoken of. We can't say the name because there is no name. And anyway, I digress a little, but what else is there? Where do we bring people to?
Yeah, so regarding what you said, what I hear you say is that you would like to support people who are in fear, and to remind them of being instead of doing, and
Yes.
instead of trying to figure things out. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to share a little bit of reflections on that. I totally agree and understand what you're saying. I also want to share that it depends. It depends on where people are, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes it doesn't, you can relate to people saying that just don't worry about it, just be, because their concept or their mental structure is that would be completely irresponsible to just be, right? And they see it as their own obligation because they have kids and wife and bills, and like, as a responsible citizen, you have to figure things out, you have to know what to do, right? So I guess I would like to address that, and that is that there are things that we actually have control over, and there are things that we don't have control over, right? So we ask ourselves, what do I actually have control over, and what do I not have any control over?
Well, I'd like to hear what you have control over in this moment.
Yeah.
In this moment.
Yeah. Well, in this moment, you have control over your attention, like where you focus on, right?
Yes.
You have control over whether you believe your thoughts or whether you see them as happenings, awareness, right? But I want to just address that, like over general, is that you want to focus on what we have control over or we don't have control over.
Yes.
And it starts with me. It always starts with my own routines, like my own mental health, my own well-being. Because if the body vehicle is not having its need met, you could have $1 million in the bank, you can have the best job and everything, but you feel absolutely freaked out because the body is not getting enough sleep or whatever. So I think that essential is to remember the simple things. Just have enough water. Like, how do I stop worrying? Just drink enough water today. Did you drink enough water? Did you breathe today? Did you like exercise?
Wim
Like the
Hof.
basic stuff. Did you have enough sleep? Right? If you've been up, till like 2 a.m. Watching the news, and then waking up in the morning because your kid is up, and you're in this bitchy zombie state.
Yes.
You could be Saint Francis, the who was it? You could be Assisi, and you would still be freaking freaked out because the operating system is running on cortisol. It's that simple. So I'm just trying to like bring the basics.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I hear you. Yes.
Like the basic physiology, we got to make our essential needs, and then once we do that, then we focus on, okay, what is the next thing I can focus on? Okay, I can apply for EI, I can apply for government assistance, whatever, that I can do all these responsible things, call my credit cards, call these people. Once I did all that, is there anything else I can do about it? Just like there's a great saying by Dalai Lama, is that, you either, if there are things that you can't control over, so there's no reason to worry about it. If you can't do something about it, then you do it. If you can't, then there is no reason to worry about it. But this is easier said than done, because the worry is done like automatically, unconsciously. If somebody has a habit of worrying all their life, you can't just fix them overnight. This is a process.
Yes.
You can't just say, okay, well, to stop worrying. Okay, I'm going to stop worrying. I wish it was that easy. The other thing I want to bring awareness to is that the discomfort and the fear that we feel is actually on a cellular bodily level, is not going to be fixed on a mental level. So that if you feel like, oh, I'm going to get my money from there, it's not going to fix the problem, because the fear is an inner feeling. It's a
Yes.
feeling that's inside that we have, from our karma and from years of living this way.
Yes.
So that's why, again, I keep saying that bringing our attention back to like healing our body through the modalities that are proven, like Wim Hof method, cold showers, exercising. And it's amazing what happens when we change our state. It's like you can have the same circumstance, unemployed, no money, stuck at home, living with people who are unconscious. You can have all this stuff and you can be totally pissed off. And then you can take this person, take him through a Wim Hof. Just all you need to do is just take 30 deep breaths, like 30 deep breaths. Hold your breath for 30 seconds, go under the cold shower for 2 minutes, freezing shower, come out, put your shoes on, go for a run, do some workouts at home, scream and shout, God is with me, God's with me. Next thing you know, same situation, completely different. Everything changes. And next thing you know, you get an email from EI saying you're going to approve. Next thing you know, your wife is actually smiling. Next thing you know, you're actually in a good mood. And you're like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, you actually get to talk to each other after you don't actually have anything to do. Like, the whole world is at shutdown. Awesome. So now I can actually connect and do other things. You see? So it's like you can have the same situation, but given the different mindset and moving the body and all that, a whole new frame becomes available. For me, that's my experience.
Yes.
What did you hear from what I said? Which part of it resonates?
Well, I do the cold shower every day.
Oh yeah.
Every day.
And you do a prayer when you do it. I like what you said. I was like, how long do you do it, Dave? And I like what you said. You're like, just one prayer. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I really like that. I use that too. What's your prayer when you do a cold shower?
I do the third step prayer slowly. And
let's do that one. What is that one? I love that one.
Do you love this?
Any of those prayers? What is it?
Yeah, I can recite the third step prayer. It's God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, this is the magic of it. Like, just feeling that we just felt, right?
Yeah. In the shower, I do it much slower.
Yeah.
And I turn, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it's at the end of my shower, and then I turn the water off, and Wim Hof, by the way, was on Russell Brand the other day.
Russell Brunson?
Russell Brand.
Okay.
The Russell.
Okay.
And he had Wim Hof on like 2 days ago, and he showed us the breathing. And of course, after the 20 ins and outs, the last breath is out. And we let it, the last breath is out for 75 seconds. So we're empty. And I can't do 75 seconds. It's like I can be empty of the breath for 30,
yes, that's a good point.
It's a beautiful the Wim Hof. I agree. Like I love all those things, and yet for me, when I drop into that empty space, which is bliss, that's but I didn't realize that I was living in ego until I was not there. I didn't, it's hard to, because when we're talking to folks, we're talking to their mind and telling them that their mind is full of shit in a way, and not bad shit, but it's just, the mind's always trying to manipulate or trying to organize or trying to direct or trying to, so it for us, especially in recovery, we got to the place where we recognize, oh my gosh, I cannot trust my mind. I cannot. Yeah. I cannot trust.
And what a beautiful place to get there, right? Like,
yes, my life is unmanageable. I cannot trust my mind.
It's such a beautiful place to get there. Like, Because I mean, to say that to someone, I cannot trust my mind, they think you're crazy, right? But to a person who's awakened, you realize that's actually a great idea because you just see you're free from the mind,
Yes.
free from that sense of fear because I cannot trust my mind, but I still am. So there must be something greater that I can trust,
Yes.
right? And how freaking awesome is that?
And there
But yeah,
is.
I remember what you're saying. Like this is why I love the 12-step work. It's just I love it. It's so good. It's just juice. Like it's ecstasy. I used to do the ecstasy drug. Like I used to love that drug. Like, but the challenge with that is after you do the drug, you become suicidal and you want to kill yourself. So that I didn't like that much.
No.
But I discovered that because these 12-step stuff and like prayers and living a spiritual life, I can actually get to that high.
Yes.
All day.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm still addicted pretty much. I'm just addicted to that which is, not destructive, but my divine right.
We're addicted to God. Yeah.
Yeah, addicted to bliss. Like we're addicted to bliss. We're still chasing the high in a sense. But we're chasing, you could say, invisible highs of ourself, of our true nature, instead of having to go find a drug dealer for a good rate of cocaine or whatever the heck we were just doing.
You studied Hawkins a bit, didn't you?
I love Hawkins. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm a C student.
And did you ever go see?
Studying.
Did you ever? Yes, of course. It's never. Did you ever go see Hawkins?
Oh yeah, twice.
Did you?
Yes, and he was. I actually asked a question of him, and he was kind of like he didn't really like receive me very well because I was coming from a lot of ego,
No.
No. Yeah, believe. I know it's hard to believe, right? A saintly being like me, like I know. I was surprised too. But anyway, I was like coming from ego, and I asked a very stupid question, to be honest. Like, I'm waiting up for asking a question, right? And there's like a huge lineup of people, and I'm like asking this question. I'm like, what question? I have like a list of 50 questions, right? And I'm like, I have to pick one. And so I'm like, what question should I ask so that he likes me or I can look the best or whatever? I see this hindsight. I wasn't thinking that when I was doing that. Anyway, I asked him the question like, after you die, like how can we like carry on this? Like what's the next step? Like what do we do? And he basically says you just read all the books. And if you read all my books and apply it, then there's nothing else left after that. That was his answer. And then everybody laughed, like you had like I actually have a video of it. But yeah, I've seen him. That's the answer.
Because you don't die. Because you don't die.
Well, the body does die, but there's a part of me, it's in Zen. It's interesting you say that because in the book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, it says, if you say, I don't die, that is not so. But if you say, I will die, that's also not so, right? You die and you do not die. So there is a part of us, I feel in my experience, that I die, just like I go to sleep at night, I die from this dream and I wake up in another dream. In a sense, this body will expire one day and it will go down because it completed its karma. And then, there's just like when I was born, I was just like, they told me, hey, Pouya, that's your name. You're Pouya now and you're our son. Something else will happen, just like a dream at night. So yeah, in a sense, if it was that easy, I would have killed myself a long time ago, but it's not. The life continues, and unless we learn the lessons, it only gets more painful. So when people say you only live once, you might as well enjoy it, I'm like, dude, like I wish it was that easy. If you only live once, if things get hard, just check out of the game and just kill yourself, and that's it. But the thing is, it doesn't. You check out of the game, you manifest in another lower realm, you become a snail, and now you're being eaten by birds all day. And now you're a snake. Or you manifest as chickens that are being abused in these cages that they put them in all day, and then they get their throat cut. I'm just sharing like all these different realms of Buddhism. Like there's the higher realms, there's the human realm, there's the Buddhist realm, there's the hungry ghost realm. Like it can get quite gritty when you study Buddhism. They have some interesting perspectives of what happens after this realm.
In Tibetan Buddhism or which Buddhism?
All Buddhism this is actually what Buddha talked about in a lot of his discourses. The interesting thing is, unlike Christians, Buddhists don't walk around talking about it. They don't talk about these things. They just talk about compassion and meditation. But if you go deeper into it, you'll feel tons of things that Buddha talked about, the 6 different realms that there are.
Yes.
And it is quite interesting, and like very interesting. Like the worst place you can be reborn is the ultimate hell, and that is like there's descriptions of you being squished and killed and like stabbed like over and over again. Like you die and then you just manifest and then you die again and you just keep happening, ongoing torment, right? And it gets quite like you can actually feel into that. It's quite nasty. And then I guess what do you have to do to manifest there? Can you guess? Like what crime would that be? If you kill your father or your mother, or you kill or injure an enlightened being, you manifest in the lowest of lowest. But I thought it's interesting that they still care about your mother and father because they were the ones who gave you the opportunity to manifest as a human, because it's a great gift to be manifest as a human, according to them, because it enables you to wake up to who you are beyond all delusions.
Where did you find time to study all this stuff?
Oh, it's just my passion. Like how do you find time to find food on the map if you're hungry? It's like, it's just, I'm curious about it. I love it.
How long ago, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you started what we'll call your spiritual search?
Oh yeah, I started it when I was doing a lot of drugs, and because I would go out, do party and do drugs, and then I would come home and feel absolutely terrible and miserable. And I would listen to Alan Watts, who was my first teacher, and through his audios, he would just start talking about like, life and philosophies and ideas, and I'm just like, he had this joyful, funny, light attitude.
He's so
Right?
amazing, isn't he? I love Alan Watts. Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
and he was my oxygen. Like once you feel shame and guilt, and you feel, imagine like you promised everybody around you that you're never gonna, let's say, do drugs, right? And you promised everyone, and you get your final money and you blow it on drugs again.
Yes.
And you come back ashamed, tired, and you see everybody around you working hard, trying to survive, and you're just totally disconnected. And you still have a soul, and part of you feels so painful, right? Because you just lie to yourself every day and you're causing suffering to people around you. So imagine that level of shame and guilt and self-defeat. I was at a place where I was just like, would I hurt my family more if I kill myself? Or would I hurt my family more if I just keep doing what I'm doing? Like I was literally between those two choices. Like, should I kill myself so that they stop suffering, see me like this? Or would they suffer more if they actually have a child who's dead, So it took that level of suffering for me to be willing to listen, because of my ego is so strong, that could give a shit less, right?
Yes.
I mean, why would you meditate? Why would you sit down and meditate and fast and do all this boring stuff when you can actually go and get laid and do a bunch of drugs and have multiple orgasms, or keep the orgasm going for hours and hours and then go to this party and that party? Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? So but there's a saying that Alan Watts taught me. He says, the fool that persists in his folly becomes wise. The fool who persists in his folly becomes wise. But yeah, through suffering, and also it's grace touching us and bringing to us. And I think it's not just us, everybody will come to it. Like the scripture says, every knee shall bend, right? Every knee shall bend in divine timing. So once we reincarnate a few times as these selfish beings, and we just kind of sex all day and money all day and all that all day, we realize, okay, we watched this movie a million times, and ultimately it's disease, death, and sickness is the end of it. What else is there? Is there some real happiness that you can actually depend on? And that's when the search starts. But to answer your question, it was around when I was like 23 or 24, and I'm now 37.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. And the same. I was in my 20s.
Oh yeah.
When it even before I was asking the questions, but I had no idea where to look. And
yeah.
But in my 20s, and I got introduced to the 12 steps. And,
oh yeah.
And then really began the journey of many paths, and which was all the same path, but many paths and many authors, and these days, of course, it never stops, for me anyway, and I know
yes.
that for you as well. Muji has been big for me this last little while. I've just really
Yeah,
enjoyed
you mentioned that.
pointing. Yeah, is Mooji. Muji. Just Google him. His YouTube videos. For a number of years, I thought, no, I don't think so. I would see him, and my friend Adrian was going to see him, and I was thinking, I'm not so sure. But this year, wow, he's just he just did a satsang in Rishikesh for like four weeks, and it was all live, and I watched pretty much every one of them from here. So late at night would be midday there, and anyway, so I found my teacher. He's my teacher today, and I still listen to Ram Dass and Alan Watts still, during the day, and Hawkins, of course, and Eckhart Tolle. And you sent me a book recently, and it keeps coming up for me to look at. Rupert.
Oh yes. Yeah, he's great. I've actually been to his retreat also, and he has multiple retreats. But you can also, he has a YouTube channel too. Rupert has a YouTube channel. Yeah, he's been a great part of my experience also. Like he's just, it's interesting listening to these guys. They all have their own angle, right? They all have their own magic gifts. Rupert, me and my previous partner, we used to joke about it, is that you listen to Rupert when you want to go to sleep because he's such a calming voice, right? Calms you and just brings you to this sense of being, So he has a very loving voice. Yeah, I really like Rupert.
What's his last name?
Spira.
Rupert Spira, yes.
Spira. Yeah, it's interesting because once I find someone, I become so like, I go study all their books and all their videos and all their stuff, and it's just like download, and then I just kind of visit them occasionally. So he's been a great, amazing part of my life for 2-3 years. I now occasionally still visit him and reflect. But I find that one thing I found out with that is that there are so many amazing teachers. There are so many good teachers and teachings. It's a good thing because it enables us to get all this different perspective. But it's also, for me, has been very challenging because I can actually, be very superficial with all these lessons and all these listening instead of actually practicing them. So there's multiple levels of insights. There's one is that if we learn something or we hear a truth and it makes sense, right? Like you hear it intellectually. But then the second level is that you actually understand it, like it clicks in. You're like, oh, now I understand. You connected logics together and you're like, now I get it. Now I don't just hear it, I understand it. But then there's another level where you actually live it and you experience it in your body, in your experience.
Sometimes the understanding can keep us from moving to that. I mean, this ego wants to understand, and the intellect will only take us so far. Of course, Hawkins said, to the top of the 400s, I think, in his scale, and Einstein was like 499, I think, in his scale, and so still in the intellect, and what you're talking about is past the understanding into a knowing that is beyond that.
Yes, and it's also experience, like actually experiencing it, right? So it's one thing to learn and read, suffering is equals to resistance, right? So that's the statement. Suffering is equal to resistance. And then you put it into your mind, okay, just like in electricity, like when there is resistance, it actually heats up and lights up, like a wire becomes cold hot. I understand that. So if I'm resisting someone in my relationship and I hate them the way they are, I create heat and I create suffering for myself. Oh, that makes sense. That's the second level of understanding. The third level is when I go in the kitchen and I see someone and the voice inside my head says they should be different than they are. And I'm like, I realize in experience that if I just drop that thought, there's peace. I have an insight. I went from suffering to peace in my own experience. Does that make sense? So that physicality, I actually feel the truth of it.
Sure.
So now
and then love is there.
Yeah, and then there's love. So then you realize that statement is experienced now.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different meaning now when it's actually experienced. So what I was trying to say is that for me, like the path of Vipassana has been a recurring theme ever since 2009 when I'm in my first retreat. But then because I found these other great teachers of spirituality, this teacher, that teacher, I let go of the commitment to that I had like a very structured routine. And for me, because I have a very addicted personality, I have a very like all or nothing personality. It helps so much to have some form of structure, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why, in my experience, when I got sidetracked with all these different great teachers, I felt like I lost something valuable. So now, in the past while, I'm making it like so that my bedrock is that structured Vipassana routine, which is very, very boring in a sense, very rigid, very, very plain. Um, and then I listen to all those other teachers as like an extra, you know, on top of it. Does that make
So
sense?
what is your practice? Can you share with us?
Yeah, I usually just Vipassana morning, afternoon, evening. So that's Anapana Vipassana, which is developing concentration, focusing on the breath. Simple, just sitting and focusing on the breath in the morning, and then in the afternoon is Vipassana, which is observing sensation and seeing reality as it is, and knowing that it's impermanent nature, and just being with the body sensation and scanning the body, which enables me to cleanse emotion. That's how I see it. It's like a cleanse of emotions,
Yes.
and then it rejuvenates. For me, like I can tell you what I love about this is that I feel like, you know, how you sometimes like at the end of the day you feel like something's missing or you lack, so you go for like sugary food or salty food or whatever, right? I find that Vipassana or meditation of this way gives me that fulfillment within that nothing can fill. It's almost like it goes inside some part of me that fulfills me. It's like it's like drinking water, like Jesus says, drink from this water and you will never thirst. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that, you know. It's
Hmm.
like drinking from this invisible water of Christ in meditation that
Hmm.
I never thirst
Hmm.
for the time being. I thirst again next day or whatever, a few
Hmm.
hours later, because the mind comes over again.
Hmm.
But that's my practice, is that, and then throughout the day, pausing, taking a word of scripture that really resonates to me. Like if I'm really, let's say, if I'm going through anxious times of, let's say, coronavirus threat, right? Um, like worrying about my family, worrying about my mom. Like, what if she gets sick? What if, you know, things? I pick a scripture saying, peace, peace, like words of Jesus, peace give I unto you. Give I unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. What does that mean? And then playing with that idea. What does it mean by peace I give to you, but not as the world gives? What does that mean? How does that? How does the world gives peace? Gives it with money, with thing, with prestige. But what is the Christ peace? How's that different? And then playing with those ideas throughout the day helps me to just have this spiritual consciousness more and more. And then it's very interesting because I find that as long as I'm into that vibration, I'm protected. I'm safe. I'm fine. Yeah, shit can go wrong, but the solution will come too.
Yes.
But it's when I forget and I, as you say, when I take myself too seriously, or I, you know, I just stop abiding in that. It can be hell. Like it can be hell very quickly too. Like the Zen saying says, heaven and heaven are 1/16 of an inch apart. So I can be in heaven, and then if I forget and I just not pay attention, I can actually find myself in hell, a worry, a fear.
Yeah. It's just right there. It is right there. It's amazing. It's right there. Thank you. Um, we've got 12:29. You had a
Perfect. Thank
hard
you so
stop
much.
at 12:30, and I just really respect your path and your um, discipline on this path and in this life, and I really enjoy our time together. Thank you for the work that you're doing, lifting yourself and all of us.
Thank you. And you as well, Dave. Thank you for all the work, taking the time, connecting people. We can't get together now, but you bringing people together all the time is a gift. You know, creating these conversations. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Also admire you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to mention that I have another interview coming up. Just for the folks that are listening right now, Malcolm Saunders from the Light Cellar. Malcolm is going to be on at 3 today. He just actually, while we were talking, I had him booked for 2, but he texted me and said, can we do it a little later? So at 3 o'clock today, Malcolm Saunders, and Malcolm is at the Light Cellar, and the Light Cellar is still open, and does deliveries and all that kind of stuff. And for those of you who don't know the Light Cellar, we'll post it when we do the interview, and it's an amazing shop in Boness. That, but it's really it's much bigger than a local shop in Boness. It's people travel from all over to go to that shop because he has such great mm, enlightened products. He calls it the light seller for a reason. And so you've been there, haven't you? To his store?
I have not, but I do have to go because I have somebody else on the other side. So thank you so much, Dave.
Love
If it's
to.
okay, I'm just gonna check out and
Yeah.
then
Talk to you soon.
thank you,
Good.
brother. Bye bye.
Bye. Hey, you guys. That's interesting. So just want to mention that we've done, I think, 5 or 6 of these now so far. We had we started with Alice Hung on Tuesday morning, and we've done Jay McLeod, and my friend Jason, and who's a critical care nurse. An interview with him. We did 2 with Adrian. Have a look back at those. We did one with my friend James McEwen yesterday. We sang some kirtan and it was beautiful. So thanks for being with us, and I'm going to go, and I'll be back in a couple hours with Malcolm Saunders. Okay, love you guys. Cheers. Oh, follow us on YouTube, and I'd love it if you go and subscribe on YouTube to Bali and Beyond, Project Awakening, the YouTube subscription. Thanks. Cheers, you guys. Bye.